Good morning. I've been meaning to start this YouTube since we first started training for Hyrox earlier this year. It's now the day before and I'm finally getting around to it, which is true Kim style. Our first Hyrox doubles. We are absolutely not claiming to be Hyrox athletes by any means, just two normal girls who couldn't have done this a few years ago and thought they would give it a crack. We're going to have some breakfast and then we're going to go to the gym, go meet Grace. So this is Grace. Grace is my coaching client, my Hyrox doubles partner, and for the longest time, my best friend for like 15 years. Yeah, how are you feeling about your Hyrox?
Nervous, shitting myself. Not nervous for the workout, more nervous for the environment, like maybe feeling a little bit overwhelmed when we walk in, trying to figure out where we need to go, what we need to do.
I almost feel like if we turn up too early, I feel like I'm going to be like,
I agree.
Watching everybody all the time.
I think we just need to get out an hour early, figure out where we're running, where we need to be, and then spend a little bit of time. We need to figure out his warm up. What's his warm up?
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Probably should have thought about that.
24 hours to go.
I've not trained at all this week. I've dropped all my strength off just to taper it down. I've just done a couple of runs, and you've trained, haven't you? You've done a couple of runs.
I just done like bits and bobs.
Yeah. I almost feel a bit like now, like I don't know if I can still do something. Like, can I push this leg?
I thought that. I was like, oh my god, what if I can't? But we'll revive.
Yeah. So if we just do like a couple of bits today, now maybe we can still do it, and then we're good.
Ow!
Grace is now an influencer because she's got it. Oh, you look good!
I've had a marshmallows bar, a pan of chocolate.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a big bowl of tuna pasta. I'm going to have potatoes and salmon for my tea. Then a bowl of Cocoa Pops before I go to bed. In the morning, I'm going to have a porridge. I've got two squares bars.
Nice.
Nothing new.
No.
Nothing new.
We don't want shits halfway around Hyrox.
Good morning. I actually can't believe I'm putting my morning face on YouTube. I've been waking up every like 2 hours being like, oh, I don't want to miss it. Oh, is it time yet? So I've not slept very well. There's no way I'm getting back to sleep now. So just having a huge coffee. I think I want to go for a little walk just to get a little bit of movement. And then we will go get ready. I feel like I'm on the walk of shame. It feels very weird. I feel like I should be walking in and trying not to wake my mum up. I'm like, Mum, I'm home.
Morning.
Hi.
We're in standstill traffic, which is fun. So we're going to be there by 9 o'clock. We've got 2 hours to get there. And we'll be sat still for the last 10 minutes because there's been an accident.
Oh my god, we're moving! Go!
Quick. You're not coming anywhere.
Whoa. Whoa. So I'm fuming that we're in traffic. I don't like traffic. I'm so impatient. This is hurting my feelings, but we're moving again now.
Stopped off at the services just to eat us breakfast because we're only like 20 minutes away from venue now, so we're making good time. So I have got this, which looks a bit weird. It's basically cream of rice and then some whey paste over the top. I've got carrot cake and birthday cake flavours, which is really nice. And then loads of salt so that I don't cramp up too much. It's a bit of a niche meal, but it's just easy to digest carbs for me, so I know that I'm not going to have an issue with it because the last thing we want is to have an accident halfway through. That wouldn't be ideal. Grace is just getting some boiling water. She's going to have oats as well, and then we will be back. Where are you?
Getting a little bit nervous.
We were just parked up. Apparently it's like a 10-15 minute walk from car park to thing, so yeah, go and see what it's all about. It's 9:30-ish or 20 to 10 and we're still queuing to register as athletes, and this is the queue.
Give us a vlog update, how are we getting on? Kim, go. No. Come on, Grace. Let's go.
Enjoy that, love.
Yeah.
You carbing up after your race?
See you next time.
We're done. We got 127. How do you feel about the hat?
A little bit disappointed, I think. I don't know. I'm glad we've done it.
Yeah.
Happy we've done it. Proud of us.
Yeah.
But definitely room for improvement. But I really enjoyed it.
Up to the services, and the post-race meal is far from optimal. I've had a steak bake. I'm about to have a double chocolate cookie, and Dan's bought me some Versa Purses, which are the best sweets ever. So
I've got some chips and a bacon double cheeseburger, and I can't wait.
we're athletes, you see.
Yeah.
Had a great time, and we did it together. I was meant to do this video the day after Hyrox, but I was knackered and then I procrastinated on it. So here we are. So we got 128. We wanted under 120, mainly because we'd done a Hyrox simulation 4 weeks before and we got 117. But what we'd not factored in was how significant the time in the rock zone would be. Rock zone is the empty space between the station and the actual run lap starting. We'd obviously never done a Hyrox before, so we didn't expect or didn't anticipate how long or short it would be. A lot of people were getting like 6, 7, 8 minutes. We got over 8 minutes in the rock zone. If we'd factored that in, we would have managed our expectations a little bit better. I got to the end and you don't really know what your finish time is until you cross over the finish line. It shows you in big letters at the end. I'd obviously set my watch before, but I wasn't really focusing on that because I'd kind of set it and then lapped it to kind of get used to what laps we were doing and the pace and everything. That all went out the window within like 3 laps. But when we crossed the finish line and we'd actually given it everything as well, I was a bit disappointed. I can't lie. Grace and I looked at each other and we were like, oh.
which is irritating because we'd put so much training into this and there'd been so much excitement and build up to it, and then to do it and kind of feel like, oh, that was disappointing. Not because it's a rubbish time, but because we'd aimed obviously at 8 minutes quicker than what we actually got. I think then when we came down from it, it was more like we could not have done this 18 months ago. Or we could have done, but it would have taken us 3 hours. I could not do a wall ball 3 years ago. So the fact that we've just done a whole Hyrox race without stopping and gave it our everything and felt pretty relatively comfortable doing everything was an achievement in itself. So any time we'd have got, we should have been really happy for. So yeah, we got over ourselves and it is what it is. It gives us a baseline to work from next time. So I'm going to go over a couple of things that maybe we probably didn't think about before, or we didn't know going into like your first race, because it might help someone on their first race. What we would do differently, I think, if we were to, well, when we do another one, we're already saying that we want to do a solo before we're 30, which is next year. So we'll see, watch this space. If we were to do it again, we raced at 10:30 was our wave time. So we'd set off really early. What I'd not accounted for was, first of all, the clocks went back. So it meant that, yes, everyone else had an extra hour in bed, but us being excited, we're up at like 4 a.m. So by the time we actually started racing, we'd already been awake a long time, which meant that we didn't only have our breakfast, which is usually what we would do. So that's what we did when we did the simulation. And then the idea was to recreate what we'd done in terms of fueling for that. But because we'd been up so long, I'd ended up eating more than I usually would. So I kind of started the race feeling a little bit bloated, which I would not want to do again. And I think that's the reason I got stitch on the third lap. And when you get stitch, you can usually get rid of it by just continuing at like a consistent pace. Obviously in Hyrox, you can't continue at a consistent pace because you are constantly, your heart rate's going up, down, because you're running, then you're doing a station, which elevates it or brings it down depending on what station it is. Then you're going back into a run. So there's no kind of easing into it or like consistency with your heart rate. So every time I pushed it on the run, I would then get stitch again. And it was that, like the really painful stitch that comes under your ribs. So if I was to do another one, I would stay over if it was a morning wave time, even if it was late morning, so that I could get up in the morning, go and get some activity, go for a walk, come back, have my breakfast, again, go and get a little bit of a walk in to try and walk some of that food off, so that when I was starting, I'd been able to kind of get rid of all the food and I wasn't bloated. I would also, if we were to do it again, spend a little bit more time spectating before. We kind of walked there, stood queuing for a toilet for 20 minutes when we'd got there, then had to get in the queue to actually do our athlete registration, which took another 10-15 minutes. So by the time we'd finished all of that and we were like in a place where we were like, right, okay, we've got us bands, we've got us numbers, we can do whatever we want now until our warm-up time. It was warm-up time, so we didn't really get a chance to spectate at all, which I regret, or I would do differently if we were to do one again. I would go a little bit earlier, so I'll probably allow like maybe an hour and a half so that you can get toilet checked in, get your bags checked in, go and spectate for half an hour. Obviously, you don't want to be there like all day because it really does amp you up being in that environment, but go and spectate the stations. We just stood on the edge of the run track and watched them all running past. We didn't really get a view of the stations or anything until we were actually doing the race. So I wish we had, because I think it makes you feel a bit more comfortable when you see other people doing it. You see that not everybody's an absolute weapon and there are just normal people like you doing it as well. So it makes you feel a little bit more comfortable, a bit more okay to pace yourself. So I would have definitely gone and spectated a little bit more, stayed over the night before and just been a little bit more active that morning as well, because we'd spent a few hours in the car and then we'd stopped off to eat our breakfast, then sat in the car again. And usually I would try and get like a 10-minute walk around the block every time I have a meal, any day anyway, just because it really helps with your digestion. And because we didn't do that, we kind of got there, felt like we were in a bit of a rush and a bit of a tizzy. And then, yeah, we took my family with me, so just my parents and my other half. In hindsight, it was really nice at the end to have had them there, because I don't think my parents appreciated how hard it was going to be. Like when I was saying, oh yeah, it's a kilometre run and then this and then a kilometre run, etc. They were like, oh, it's okay. It's only like 8 little runs and then just some stations and stuff. But when we were there, we got to the end and they were like, I can't believe how actually grueling that was. And I was like, yeah, I have been talking about it for 6 months. But because I took my parents with me, you feel responsible for the spectators you take with you, don't you? So when Grace and I went to warm up and we kind of lost sight of my parents and Dan, I felt a little bit like, oh, are they okay? Is my dad getting a bit overwhelmed in this environment? Because he tends to get a little bit like amped up if there's a lot going on. Like I was thinking about them and will they know where we're running to? Are they going to be able to see us? And it kind of distracted me a little bit. So I think if I was to do my first time over, I would go just Grace and I, or with someone that had maybe been before. So I didn't feel like responsible for like showing them around when I myself didn't really know where I was going or what I was doing anyway. So then the race itself, Grace doesn't really like the ski. Grace is a fantastic runner. She can run like 12, 15 kilometres if she wanted to, if she put her mind to it. I am not an endurance athlete. I am a hard and fast, hot out the gate athlete. Oh, not athlete, but you know what I mean. Like I'm not very good at pacing myself and getting excited. So we'd said before, don't go too hot on the ski. Everybody says it. It's advice from literally everywhere, all over Instagram. Everyone that we know who's done Hyrox has said, do not go out too hot on the ski. So I went too hot on the ski, obviously, and we'd split it so that I was doing more meters on the ski because Grace doesn't like the ski as much, and I'm a little bit stronger on some of the stations, whereas Grace is a stronger runner. So we split it where I did 250 and Grace did 150. She did the first bit and then I did 250. And because I was so excited and just looking around and I could hear everybody shout, like my mum and dad and stuff shouting us, I just got too excited. And I think I was pulling at like a 147, which would be okay if it was like a 20, 30 second stint. But because I was doing 250 meters at a time, I didn't feel it at the time. But then in the third lap when I got stitched, I kind of thought, I wish I'd have just taken that a bit steadier. So yeah, I would definitely not go as hot on the ski in future, probably. Another thing we would probably do going forward, which we didn't do for everything, was the stronger runner to start and end the stations. So Grace is the stronger runner, 100%. On some of the stations, because I'm stronger on some of the stations, so like the row, that's pretty much at your midpoint is your row. So you've already done 4 runs, then you get on your row. I'm definitely stronger at the row. So I started the row and I finished the row and I did the bulk of the meters, which would have been fine in isolation, but because I was already knackered from the run, whereas Grace is a better runner, so she can recover quicker than me from a run, probably should have done it where Grace kind of does a smaller bit to start off, let me have a breather and come down from the run, and then I then go in and row. Because during the kind of my last bit of the row, I could really feel the lactic building up, felt a little bit sick. And then obviously when you come off your station, you want to run to the run. You don't want to be walking through the rock zone, but I just could not. After the row, I was like, I really feel sick. I need a drink. And that's another thing you don't think about as well. So your mouth gets so tacky. When we did the Hyrox simulation, like the 4 weeks prior, the run was outside, so it was fine because it was fresh air, it was a bit cooler, and it was a nice day. Whereas when you're at Hyrox, you're running inside in an arena full of people who are also sweating. So it is red hot, very, very warm. There's no fresh air, so it's very stale, and you like lips stick to your teeth. We ended up stopping for electrolytes a couple of times. They were like in little pots. It's like that or Red Bull, which is not a vibe when you're doing a Hyrox. That would have just been a mess. Just expect the rock zone time, like account for it. I think going in with a goal in mind in terms of time is not a bad thing. I think it's very hard to honestly say, oh, I'm going to go and do this race or this event that I've been training for months and I don't care what time I get. Because you do. You're lying. If you say you don't care what time you get, you are absolutely a liar. Gonna have a time in mind, but don't be disheartened if you get a little bit more, because like the rock zone is a quite significant time, and double knot your laces so you don't have to stop and tie your laces. Because we had to stop while Grace tied her laces and we were both like, come on, let's go. And then you get all fumble fingers and everything. So yeah. And then in terms of training, so we'd been training for a little while for this. So we were already both avid gym goers. I don't know, that's a bit of a cheesy phrase, isn't it? But yeah, we're both training regularly before it, mainly strength sessions. Both of us have done a fair bit of like high intensity training. Grace has done a lot of running, I've done a little bit of running. So we already had a really good base, both very fit already, both pretty strong already. So mainly our training was centered around, well, in the initial stages, it was more around building that muscle endurance. So being able to do high reps with low weight of most of the movements and various other movements. Don't just focus on your Hyrox movements. Like, you need movements that are going to complement those movement patterns. So being able to do that and under fatigue. Then we kind of moved more towards building that aerobic base whilst doing that. So running whilst also working with the station kind of movements and the other strength stuff. And then on the last phase, we focused more on compromised running and kind of refining, I suppose, the movements and things and the changeovers. We're both very confident going into it that we could do it. And I think that training like that really helped give us that confidence. So there wasn't a point where we were kind of coming up to it being like, I don't know if I can do it. We both knew we could do it. It was just more what we can tap into mentally while we're doing it to push ourselves through. So I would definitely say though, with training, next time I do one, I'm definitely going to focus more on running fast and fatigued. So I've seen all over the place people saying that if you're training for a Hyrox, it needs to be similar to training for a half marathon. And I understand where that's come from. I'm not disputing that at all, because you need a good aerobic base. You have to be able to run for long distance, because it's not just you have to run 8K, you're having to run fatigued. So I understand where that comes from. But for us personally, and like what our strengths and weaknesses are, we need to be able to refine the time we got. We need to be able to run faster more often and run fatigued. So when we do it again, we'll look at programming more interval runs, more speed work, get the legs used to running fast, because our legs are used to running at 5.5 to 6 minutes a kilometre. But when it comes to the faster times and like your 3.5, 4 minute splits, like our legs are not used to doing that because we don't train like that. So I would definitely do that next time when I start training for the next one, and training fatigued more often. So compromised running, training basically when your legs are fucked. So yeah, definitely more of that. And I think that will tie into helping me not get stitch as well, because that constant variation in your heart rate through Hyrox is really hard to train, I would say, unless you're constantly tapping into that anaerobic energy system during your training and being able to build your anaerobic threshold, to not like nerd out, but yeah. Definitely train heavier, I would recommend. That's what we did when we were training. So wall balls, we would train a 6 kilogram ball instead of a 4, which it is in the comp. We were training heavier on the sled, both push and pull. We were training heavier on the sandbag, everything. So make your training session up until Hyrox harder than the Hyrox itself, because you can never replicate the adrenaline of being in the arena, the kind of thought pattern of like, this is race day, and all that kind of thing. You can't replicate that in a normal training session. So the best thing you can do, in my opinion, and the best thing we did, was train harder than the Hyrox is going to be in its kind of purest form in terms of the exercises, the weights, etc. And then all of the other things that come only on race day don't feel as shocking, because you can do the Hyrox itself. I would recommend doing a simulation before as well. So again, that gave us the confidence when we were training to feel like, yeah, okay, I can do this. A lot of people say like, don't take it too seriously. And I definitely agree. But I think just the type of people we are, like I'm a personal trainer. I've coached women online. So, I love this stuff. So it's really hard for me to just be like, yeah, it's fine. Like, I'll not take it seriously, because really in my head, I'm like, okay, we need to program like this and we'll do this. So yeah, I think if you do take it seriously and you are like really into it, then fine. Don't let people say to you, it's just a race, it's just a Hyrox, everyone's doing a Hyrox these days. Like, no, just take it seriously. If it makes you feel good and empowered and you feel like you're doing something hard that you could have never done, then yeah, take it as seriously as you want to, or don't. Like, just turn up and just do it if you want to. It's totally your choice. I think there was a lot of people that said to us before we started, especially like people who aren't really in the fitness space at all, where they're like, what, do you really need to be training this hard? Like, you're not going and doing a marathon. Like, you're not in the Olympics. Like, do you have to be doing all of this? And like, oh, it's okay. You can still come out for a drink. Like, it doesn't matter. It's not going to affect. And it took a little bit of willpower to be like, actually, no, like, to me, this is serious. Like, this is a huge achievement, not just Hyrox in itself, but 4 years ago, who Grace and I were, we would have looked at us now doing this from the outsider's point of view and gone, oh my God, I could never do that. So that's why we took it seriously, because being able to do something you always thought you could never do is so rewarding, and then knocks on to like so many other areas of your life without getting too deep. So yeah, that's why we took it seriously, and I'm really, really, really glad we did. I don't think we took it to the point where it was like ridiculous. We're definitely not athletes. We're just two people who enjoy strength training, who like doing hard things just to prove to ourselves that we do. So hope this was useful. If you have any other tips for Hyrox, then drop them in the comments. If you've got any comments about your own Hyrox and like lessons you learned from it that you want to pass on to other people, then drop them below. I'm sure they'll be helpful to anyone else who's watching, if anyone does, apart from my mum and my boyfriend. That is my little intro to YouTube. Hopefully there'll be some more videos and stuff on in the coming weeks. Bye.